October 14th, 1944. The outskirts of Hürtgen Forest, Western Germany. Cold rain presses the mud flat, turning the trenches into narrow canals of brown water and rotting leaves. The forest groans under distant artillery, each impact sending a low vibration through the ground, like a warning that never quite stops. You can smell wet earth, cordite, and unwashed wool before you see a single soldier at the far end of the trench line, hunched slightly forward as if the war itself has bent his spine. Stands Private First Class Walter Walt Kruger. He is 46 years old, ancient by infantry standards. His helmet sits low, the paint chipped, the liner darkened by years of sweat. His face is thick and uneven, not scarred in a heroic way, just worn. Heavy eyelids, a crooked nose broken long before this war ever started. No sharp jawline, no posture posters would ever print. The younger soldiers whisper when his back is turned. Too old for this, he'll slow us down. Probably shake when the shooting starts. They call him uncle behind his back, sometimes grandpa. Not kindly. Kruger hears it all. He never responds. He checks his weapon instead. An MP-40 submachine gun, carefully cleaned, the metal dull to avoid reflection. Spare magazines are taped together in pairs, bullets alternating direction. An old habit, efficient, quiet. His hands do not shake as he seats the magazine. They never do. This sector has been tense for days. German forces have fallen back into a defensive maze of trenches reinforced with timber bunkers and narrow underground tunnels dug deep enough to survive artillery. The forest floor above them looks innocent. Beneath it is a warren built for killing at arm's length. Kruger has seen this before. Not here, not against this enemy, but the shape of it is familiar. He fought in the last war, not as a hero. As a survivor, that is something the young men cannot see when they look at him. Lieutenant Harris walks the trench line, boots sinking with each step. 23 years old. Fresh bars on his collar. His map is already smeared with mud. Listen up, Harris says. Recon reports movement below us. Tunnel access points likely within 50 meters. Expect contact from underneath. Stay sharp. A nervous laugh ripples through the trench. Someone mutters about rats the size of dogs. Harris stops in front of Kruger. His eyes linger a moment too long, Kruger, he says. You stay back, cover the rear. If things get messy, fall back toward the reserve trench. It is not a suggestion, it is containment. Kruger nods once. Yes, sir. He does not argue. He never does. Minutes later, the first sound comes. Not an explosion, not gunfire, scraping. Metal on wood faint. Almost missed under the rain. Kruger freezes. His head tilts slightly, like an animal catching a scent. His eyes move to a dark section of trench wall reinforced with old planks. He steps closer, ignoring the cold water soaking his boots. There, again, a rhythm. The younger soldiers are focused forward, rifles pointed toward the forest line. They expect the enemy to come from ahead. Kruger knows better. Enemies who dig do not announce themselves. He raises a hand. Contact below, he says quietly. No one listens. Then the ground erupts. A section of trench wall collapses inward as a concealed tunnel exit blows open. Mud, splinters, and smoke fill the air. A German soldier surges upward, screaming, bayonet fixed. Chaos explodes, shots crack. A man goes down, screaming, blood mixing with water at the bottom of the trench. Another enemy follows, then another, climbing out of the tunnel like something dragged from the earth. The young soldiers panic. Rifles snag on trench walls. One man slips and fires wildly into the air. Kruger moves. He steps forward into the smoke. MP40 raised, firing short, controlled bursts. The first enemy drops instantly, hit twice in the chest. The second barely has time to turn before Kruger closes the distance and fires point blank. The third retreats back into the tunnel, wounded and screaming. Kruger does not chase. He reloads smoothly, already kneeling, already aiming at the hole in the ground. Grenade, someone shouts. Too late. The explosion rattles teeth and ears, spraying dirt across the trench. When the smoke clears, Kruger is still there, covered in mud, breathing steady. Weapon up, the hole remains open. Dark, waiting. Kruger looks into it like a man staring down a well he has fallen into before. This is not chaos to him. This is work. He turns to Lieutenant Harris, who is staring, wide-eyed, gripping his pistol with both hands. "Sir," Kruger says calmly, "they're coming from the tunnels. More than one. If we don't go down there, they'll keep bleeding us from underneath." Harris swallows. "You're volunteering?" he asks. Kruger nods once. Not bravado, not courage. Certainty. Lieutenant Harris hesitates for only a second, but in war, a second stretches long enough to kill men. Another shot cracks from somewhere beneath their boots, the sound muffled by earth and timber. A bullet punches through a plank inches from Harris's shoulder. He flinches. "All right," Harris says, forcing his voice steady. "Kruger, take 2 men. Clear it." 2 young soldiers step forward reluctantly. One is Private Lewis, barely 19, his helmet too big for his head. The other, Corporal Stein, tries to hide the tremor in his hands by tightening his grip on his rifle. Kruger studies them quickly, not judging, measuring. "No," he says, "too narrow." One man moves faster. Harris opens his mouth to argue. Kruger is already moving. He slips a flashlight from his pocket, the lens taped down to a thin slit. He pulls a single grenade from his pouch, weighs it in his hand, then clips it back. He checks his MP41 last time and steps into the hole. The tunnel swallows him immediately. The air below is warm and foul, thick with damp wood, sweat, and something older. The ceiling forces him to crouch. His shoulders brush the walls. Water drips steadily, echoing like distant footsteps. Every sound feels closer here. He kills the flashlight. Darkness presses in. Absolute. Kruger waits 10 seconds, 20, then he hears it. Breathing, not his. He raises the MP40 and advances one careful step at a time, boots placed sideways to avoid splashing. His mind is calm, empty of noise. This space is familiar. He has been young men in tunnels before, screaming, panicking, firing blindly. He learned long ago that tunnels reward patience. A shadow moves. Kruger snaps the flashlight on for half a second. Just enough. A German soldier is crouched ahead, rifle raised, eyes wide. Kruger fires immediately. 2 rounds. The man collapses without a sound, his body slumping sideways against the tunnel wall. Kruger keeps moving. The tunnel splits ahead, left and right. Chalk markings line the walls. Arrows, numbers. This is not a single hole. This is a system. He listens again. Voice is German. Close. Kruger pulls the grenade, twists the cap silently, and rolls it down the left passage. He turns and moves right, pressing himself flat against the wall. The explosion is contained, brutal. The tunnel shudders. Screams follow, cut short. Kruger does not look back. The right passage opens into a low bunker chamber reinforced with logs. A dim lantern hangs from a nail, casting swinging shadows. 3 enemy soldiers are inside. One is cleaning his weapon. Another is kneeling over a map. The third looks up to Lake. Kruger fires in controlled bursts, stepping sideways as he shoots, keeping his back to solid earth. One man drops instantly. The second tries to grab his rifle and collapses halfway up. The third lunges forward with a knife. Desperation on his face, Kruger steps in close and fires once into the man's chest. Silence returns, broken only by the crackle of the lantern flame. Kruger reloads. Above ground, the young soldiers wait, every sound from below twisting their nerves tighter. Lieutenant Harris keeps glancing at his watch, then at the hole. Another burst of gunfire echoes up from beneath them, then an explosion that sends dirt raining down the trench. "Jesus," Lewis whispers. "Is he alive?" Minutes pass, then more shots. Closer this time. Controlled, methodical. A German soldier suddenly bursts out of the tunnel entrance, face pale, eyes wild. He scrambles for the trench ladder and is cut down instantly by rifle fire. Another tries to follow and is dragged back inside by unseen hands. The hole goes quiet again. Harris kneels at the edge. Peering down, heart-pounding Kruger, he calls, "Report." For a moment, there is nothing. Then a voice rises from the darkness below, calm and unhurried. Tunnel system extends east. At least 3 access points. They're falling back deeper. Harris exhales a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "You want support?" he asks. A pause. "Negative," Kruger replies. "Too tight. I'll collapse it from inside." Harris looks at the men around him. The same soldiers who laughed hours earlier are now staring at the hole, like it is a mouth that has learned to speak. Another explosion shakes the trench, then another. Timber cracks. The earth groans. Finally, a figure climbs out. Kruger emerges slowly, coated in mud and dust, his helmet askew. A thin line of blood runs from a cut above his eyebrow. His eyes remain steady, alert behind him. The tunnel entrance collapses inward with a dull roar. Sealing the darkness below, Kruger hands his empty grenade pouch to Harris. Tunnel neutralized. "Sir," no one laughs now. No one speaks at all. The rain stops just before dawn, leaving the forest unnaturally quiet. Steam rises from the ground like breath from a wounded animal. The men in the trench do not sleep. No one suggests it. They clean weapons, reload magazines, and keep stealing glances at Kruger, as if he might vanish if they look away too long. Word spreads fast in places like this, faster than orders, by the time first light seeps through the trees. Soldiers from neighboring positions are leaning over trench walls, asking questions they pretend are casual. Who cleared the tunnel? Was it a squad? How many down there? No one answers directly. They just look at Kruger. He sits on an ammo crate, methodically drying his MP40 with a rag. His movements are slow but precise. No wasted motion. When a fresh lieutenant from another company approaches, helmet still clean, boots barely scuffed, Kruger does not look up. "You, the one." The lieutenant asks. Kruger nods once. The officer studies him, confused. This is not what a tunnel clearer is supposed to look like. No scars carved by youth. No reckless energy. Just weight and stillness. Before more can be said, artillery slams into the forest line ahead. The ground bucks. Trees snap and fall like matchsticks. Dirt rains down into the trenches again. The Germans are counterattacking. This time, they do not come from below. They come through the trenches themselves. Enemy soldiers pour in from a connecting trench to the east. Grenades bouncing off wooden duckboards. Rifles firing at muzzle distance. The fight collapses into hand-to-hand chaos. Men stumble, scream, disappear into smoke. Kruger is already moving. He does not charge. He positions. He presses himself into a recess where two trench lines intersect. From here, the angles favor him. He fires short bursts, forcing the enemy to bunch up. When they hesitate, he advances 3 steps, then stops again. A German soldier rushes him with a bayonet. Kruger sidesteps, grabs the rifle barrel, and drives the stock of his MP40 into the man's face. The enemy falls. Kruger fires once into the chest and keeps moving. A grenade lands near his boots. Kruger kicks it backward into a side trench and throws himself flat. The explosion kills 2 men who never see it coming. The younger soldiers begin to follow him without realizing it. They anchor themselves around his movements, adjusting their positions to match his rhythm. When he stops, they stop. When he advances, they surge behind him. Someone shouts, "Follow Kruger." The name sticks. Another enemy wave tries to break through using a partially collapsed tunnel entrance farther down the line. Kruger sees it instantly. He signals to men forward, then ducks into the smoke alone. Inside the tunnel, visibility drops to nothing. The floor is slick with blood and water. A wounded German crawls toward him, clutching a pistol. Kruger fires without breaking stride. The tunnel narrows. The walls press in. This is where panic kills. Kruger slows instead. He hears footsteps ahead. Multiple rushing, confident. He waits until they are almost on top of him. Then he fires. The tunnel becomes a chamber of echoes. Muzzle flashes illuminate faces frozen in shock. Bodies pile up, blocking the passage. Kruger reloads calmly and fires again to make sure. When he emerges back into the trench, the fight is already breaking. The enemy withdraws, leaving behind weapons, wounded, and silenced. Lieutenant Harris approaches, face streaked with grime, eyes wide with something close to awe. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" he asks. Kruger shrugs. "Long time ago, that is all," he offers. By nightfall, the sector holds. The tunnels stay quiet. No more scraping. No more breathing from below. The young soldiers sit closer to Kruger now. They offer him cigarettes without speaking. They stop calling him uncle when artillery rumbles again in the distance. No one doubts where they want to be standing. They want to be near the old man in the trench. December 2nd, 1944. The Hurtgen forest does not forgive. Snow replaces rain, sealing blood and footprints beneath a thin white skin. The trenches freeze hard, boards cracking under boots. Breath turns to fog. Metal burns the hands. The Germans try one last time. It begins before dawn, the hour when men are weakest. Mortar fall in a tight pattern, walking closer, forcing heads down. Then the scraping returns. Slow, careful, familiar. This time, no one laughs. No one hesitates. Kruger is already awake. He listens, counting, mapping the sound in his head. 2 tunnels. One shallow, one deep. The deep one will surface behind the line. He points without speaking. The men move where he indicates. They trust the motion of his hand more than any map. Let them come up, Kruger says quietly. Then close the door. The first enemy breaks through behind the trench line, expecting confusion. He finds a wall of rifles instead. Gunfire shreds the narrow space. Bodies fall into the tunnel opening, clogging it. The second tunnel opens closer. Grenades roll out. Smoke floods the trench. A young soldier panics and freezes. Kruger steps past him into the smoke. Inside the tunnel, the fighting is blind and brutal. Shots fired by sound. Hands grabbing at sleeves. A blade flashes. Kruger takes a cut along his arm and does not slow. He fires until the magazine clicks empty, switches weapons, and keeps moving. When it ends suddenly. The tunnels go silent. By sunrise, the forest stands still again. The German line has pulled back. They will not try here again. A medic binds Kruger's arm. The cut is deep. The medic shakes his head. "You should have been sent home years ago," he mutters. Kruger gives a thin smile. Maybe. Later that day, an officer arrives with paperwork and stiff words about commendations and bravery. He asks Kruger to stand, to pose, to explain. Kruger declines. "I did my job," he says. "That's enough." Weeks later, the unit moves on. New ground, new trenches, new tunnels waiting to be dug. Kruger does not make it to the end of the war. Not because he is killed, because his body finally refuses. Infection, fever, quiet evacuation to the rear. The young soldiers watch him leave. Wrapped in a blanket, eyes still sharp, no one jokes. Years after the war, the forest grows back. Trenches collapse. Tunnels cave in. The earth swallows the evidence. But soldiers who fought there remember. They remember that the most dangerous man in the trenches was not the strongest or the fastest or the youngest. He was the one who understood the dark, who listened to the ground, who did not panic when the walls closed in. The earth remembers him too.